All right. A little bit late on this, but yes, the divorce arc is coming to the climax, and here's the results. I also did Catchies too because she was with him the whole way through. She's probably obviously going to have some insight on things that he might not mention or forget to mention here.
All right, it's time. Let's talk about the divorce. So I've been away for quite a while. Let me tell you why. At this point, the case is over. I've been trying to get this divorce settled. It was a lot longer process than I thought, and I haven't talked about it in any official way up until this point. There's two different courts. There's the court of public opinion, that is Reddit, Twitter, all those great and wonderful places. And then there's the court of law, where I believed that was the best place to spend most of my time and focus most of my efforts. After it was settled, then we could talk about it. We could dispel any rumors or any sort of questions people had. And that's who this video is for. It's for people who genuinely are curious about what happened. I have documents here in front of me. I'm gonna read them as they are. I'm gonna try my best to not have any of my opinions in here. Some of these things are a bit confusing for people who don't know lawyer speak. So I'm gonna do my best to explain these documents in a more casual way. So hopefully everyone can understand them. Keep things as plain as I can. This isn't to inflame the situation or cause any stress to anybody whatsoever. I just wanna speak the truth finally. So I want to do my best to provide an accurate timeline of what happened. The divorce was filed by Malena in January of 2025. We had split up the previous year. It was amicable. We tweeted about it on Twitter. Everyone saw that. And the divorce ended up being officially filed by her in, like I said, January. I sent Malena a 50-50 offer down the middle in April of that year. She did not accept it. I did not know what she wanted out of this divorce until mediation, which was actually in November. And essentially what she wanted was the same thing she wanted in trial, and that's what we have here. I warned Malena that trial would be very expensive. It would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but still we had to go to trial, and you'll see why. So bear with me now. We are gonna go into some legal documents. What I have here is what they call Malena Midtoy Palom's First Amendment disposition of issues. So this is essentially what she wanted. I'm gonna read the document to the best of my ability because I can't read very well, but I'm gonna explain things so everyone can kind of understand what she wanted and how it went down. Keep in mind, we each had this. This one's hers, this one's mine. We'll go over mine, but first let's do hers. Hers is a bit longer. The first thing she wanted, and by the way this works is it's essentially a line with like for a check mark and then the thing that they wanted. So the first thing that she wanted was to grant the divorce between the parties on the grounds of insupportability. This is very important, and I'm gonna explain exactly what that means right now. In Texas, a divorce can be granted on the grounds of insupportability, which is the state's no-fault divorce ground. The Texas Family Code defines insupportability as a conflict or discord of personalities between the spouses that destroys legitimate ends of the marriage relationship and prevents any reasonable expectation of reconciliation. In practical terms, it means neither spouse has to prove wrongdoing, no evidence of adultery, cruelty, abandonment, or other fault is required. The court only needs to find that the marriage has become unworkable and that reconciliation is not reasonably expected. So you can't.
When in the beginning of this, when he said he didn't expect it, no. After hearing about divorces for years and years and years and years and years, you listen to your grandparents, stories, actually less about their stories because of the fact that a lot of times back in those days, people were just leaving. There was no substantial consequences or anything. They would just leave. And even hearing about other stories after that, your mom's, dad's, uncle stories or whatever, even friends that get divorced. Sometimes these divorces take years because one party doesn't want to sign off on something. Be prepared to actually not.
Can file divorce on. All right, it's time. Let's talk about the divorce. So I've been away for quite a while. Let me tell you why. At this point, the case is over. I've been trying to get this divorce settled. It was a lot longer process than I thought, and I haven't talked about it in any official way up until this point. There's two different courts. There's the court of public opinion, that is Reddit, Twitter, all those great and wonderful places. And then there's the court of law, where I believe that was the best place to spend most of my time and focus most of my efforts. After it was settled, then we could talk about it. We could dispel any rumors or any sort of questions people had. And that's who this video is for. It's for people who genuinely are curious about what happened. I have documents here in front of me. I'm gonna read them as they are. I'm gonna try my best to not have any of my opinions in here. Some of these things are a bit confusing for people who don't know lawyer speak. So I'm gonna do my best to explain these documents in a more casual way. So hopefully everyone can understand them. Keep things as plain as I can. This isn't to inflame the situation or cause any stress to anybody whatsoever. I just wanna speak the truth finally. So I want to do my best to provide an accurate timeline of what happened. The divorce was filed by Malena in January of 2025. We had split up the previous year. It was amicable. We tweeted about it on Twitter. Everyone saw that. And the divorce ended up being officially filed by her in, like I said, January. I sent Malena a 50-50 offer down the middle in April of that year. She did not accept it. I did not know what she wanted out of this divorce until mediation, which was actually in November. And essentially what she wanted was the same thing she wanted in trial, and that's what we have here. I warned Malena that trial would be very expensive. It would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but still we had to go to trial, and you'll see why. So bear with me now. We are gonna go into some legal documents. What I have here.
Now, hold on. Even before we get started with this, when he says, hey, I didn't expect it to, no, you hear stories day in and day out from parents, grandparents, your friends, uncles, aunts, whatever else, people that you went to school with about their divorces, about what some of these divorces take years because one party, you know, they have trouble for certain diabolical reasons. It's hard to get one person to sign. Like you'll hear about divorces that have been like, we've been divorced, not officially that the papers didn't be signed, but we've been divorced for like 6-7 years and nobody signed the papers. I heard people from the 90s just getting their papers signed just a few years ago. Like if you go follow this creator named Lovely Mimi or Mimi Lovely or whatever, this is the Asian chick with the long nails. She's like a food content creator. She be talking crazy and real raunchy. It took her like 2 or 3 years to get her paper signed because she kept having to fly back and forth. Her ex-husband lived in a different state. And every time she tried to fly to that state to get him to sign the papers, he would dodge her all the time because of the fact that she was popular and kind of famous on social media and he wasn't. And I guess he was just like, I guess having his name attached to hers for some weird reason. You would think it's because of like clout or some type of, he's promoting something, some notable. I don't know. I have no idea why he would want to have his name attached to her unless he was, you know, feeding off of her popularity or whatever. But she finally got the paper signed or whatever, but it took her like 2 years and some change or something like that. So there you go.
Is what they call Malena Midtoy Palom's First Amendment disposition of issues. So this is essentially what she wanted. I'm going to read the document to the best of my ability because I can't read very well, but I'm going to explain things so everyone can kind of understand what she wanted and how it went down. Keep in mind, we each had this. This one's hers. This one's mine. We'll go over mine, but first let's do hers. Hers is a bit longer. The first thing she wanted, and by the way this works is it's essentially a line with like for a check mark and then the thing that they wanted. So the first thing that she wanted was to grant the divorce between the parties on the grounds of insupportability. This is very important, and I'm gonna explain exactly what that means right now. In Texas, a divorce can be granted on the grounds of insupportability, which is the state's no-fault divorce ground. The Texas Family Code defines insupportability as a conflict or discord of personalities between the spouses that destroys legitimate ends of the marriage relationship and prevents any reasonable expectation of reconciliation.
And this is basically kind of where they describe it as what I said earlier. That's when like your wife just leaves. She can just up and leave. That's like a no-fault divorce.
In practical
for whatever
terms,
reason.
It means neither spouse has to prove wrongdoing.
Yeah.
No evidence of adultery, cruelty, abandonment, or other fault is required. The court only needs to find that the marriage has become unworkable and that reconciliation is not reasonably expected. So
That's where incompatibility comes in.
can file divorce on other grounds, and I'll explain what those are. Cruelty. You can file for adultery, which didn't happen. Conviction of a felony, abandonment, living apart, etc. She filed on the grounds of insupportability. Next, award Malena Midtoy Palom a disproportionate shares of the party's estate for the following reasons, including but not limited to. So she wanted more than 50-50. respondent's economic and financial abuse of the petitioner, respondent's failure to permit access to the party's community property accounts, including for purposes of insight and access to such community funds, benefits the innocent spouse may have derived from continuation of the marriage, disparity of earning power of the spouses and their ability to support, earning power, business opportunities, capacities, and the ability of the spouses, nature of the property involved in the division, waste, and attorney's fees to be paid. So to explain that, the judge, in order to grant Milena her disproportionate share, would have to find something that fits those sort of grounds, any of those bullet points that I read off. Next, confirmation of Milena Midtoy's separate property as outlined in the attached spreadsheet, meaning that there's an attached spreadsheet here that has her own property in it. Makes sense. Next, order Milena Midtoy Palom's waste claim for Nicholas Michael Palom's excessive expenditures. That was over $100,000 they had claimed against me. The next thing she wanted, and this is one of the reasons why we had to go to trial, order Milena Midtoy Palom's request for post-divorce maintenance for a period of 5 years from February 1st, 2026 in the amount of $5,000 a month. So she wanted me to pay her $5,000 a month for 5 years. We don't even have kids.
I was about to say, yeah, there's no kids involved in this.
And this was the biggest one, the most important one, and it's gonna take some time to explain it because this is also why we really had to go to trial. Order Milena Midtoy Palom be granted a judgment against Nicholas Michael Palom with specific language securing such entrance against the shares and stock held by Nicholas Michael Palom with his interests in OTK Ventures, OTK Media, and Kings Gaming Labs Incorporated. So this is essentially the crux of the entire trial. I mentioned earlier that Milena wanted a disproportionate share of the estate. She wanted a 60-40 split of
out of a judgment and a monthly payment on top of that that is not spousal support.
the entire estate. But it was a little bit more complicated than that. What she wanted to do essentially was have her 60% be all cash and my 40% be heavily weighted in my OTK shares. She wanted about 90% of the cash reserves, plus she wanted me to pay her this post-divorce maintenance, and my 40% would be essentially all in my OTK shares, which no one really knows what those are worth. This was the biggest point of contention in the trial for me. I don't think anyone would have accepted the offer that was presented in front of them. Essentially, it would drain me to 10% cash reserves, be in debt a whole bunch of money. So I would put a lot of trust in those OTK shares being worth something someday. So that is just about half of the document. And I don't know if I should say this, but now it gets kind of funny, and I'm gonna explain to you why. Up next is a section called income taxes, and let me read this for you.
I think he's still reading her this.
Order that any refunds received from the date of marriage through the date of divorce be divided equally by the parties, with Milena Midtoy being entitled to 50% and Nicholas Michael Palom being entitled to 50%. So if there was a tax refund, she would get half of it, I would get half of it. Makes sense, right? Order any liability from the date of marriage to the date of divorce be paid solely by Nicholas Palom. So if there was a tax bill, I would have to pay for all of the taxes.
Okay. Damn.
But if there's a refund, Milena would get half of it.
Okay.
Order that the parties file separate tax returns
This nigga here, man.
and partitions as January 1st, 2026, and each party be liable for their own respective taxes for 2026 and each awarded respective returns for 2026. Makes sense to me. Up next, injunctions. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing. I'll try my best to explain it for everyone. Order Nicholas Michael Palom be restrained and enjoined from making any public statements, whether written, verbal, or visual, regarding the ongoing litigation and the parties' divorce, unless mutually agreed upon in writing by the parties and filed within the court. So that essentially says that me, and you notice her name's not there, but me and me alone can't talk about it. And then the next line is, strictly in the event the court does not grant the requested permanent injunction,
She don't want that public scrutiny.
Milena Midtoy Palom requests the court after trial on the merits to grant the following permanent injunctions enjoining the parties, their agents, servants, employees, and attorneys. So pretty much everyone involved this is the following injunction. Directly or indirectly disseminating, publishing, or causing to be published, or directly or indirectly requesting a person disseminating or publishing any letter, story, statement, correspondence, description, or depiction of any kind whatsoever, including on any social media, whether fictionalized or not, which is or could be reasonably interpreted to be disparaging, negative, or defamatory in its description of the other party's personal, professional, private, or family life, including without limitation the business or the financial affairs of the other party. So essentially, anyone involved with me whatsoever could not talk about this divorce. Spoiler, that did not get granted because obviously we're talking about it now. I'll explain why that didn't get granted, because essentially that's an infringement on my First Amendment right to the Constitution of the United States of America, which is freedom of speech. Milena Midtoy-Palom requests the court order Nicholas Michael Palom to pay reasonable attorney's fees, expenses, and costs through trial and appeal, and a judgment should be rendered in favor of Milena Midtoy-Palom against Nicholas Michael Palom and be ordered to pay directly to Milena Midtoy-Palom. Milena Midtoy-Palom request post-judgment interest as allowed by law. Also, it says Milena Midtoy-Palom requests the court deny any and all of Nicholas Palom's requested relief filed with the court. So that's a lot. I'll explain quickly what she wanted. She wanted a 60-40 split because of her reasons listed. She wanted me to pay her $5,000 a month for 5 years. She wanted the majority of my part of the split to be locked up in my OTK shares. She wanted me not to be able to talk about the case whatsoever. She wanted the things about taxes. She also wanted me to pay her lawyer fees. So what did I want? Let's get into it. It's not going to be as long as what she wanted, so we'll keep it plain as possible. I'll read it as is, just like I did with hers. Number 1, grounds of divorce. Nicholas Michael Palom requests that the court be granted a divorce on the grounds of insupportability. There's that word again, insupportability. This is the...
You know what's crazy? Just to even pause, thinking about Christy Sarah and Christina Scott. Well, which I guess her last name is Christy Scott. Scott. Her last name has changed back, I guess, right? I don't know what it is on her social media, whether she changed it or not, or is it just like Christy Sarah still or whatever. They worked theirs out pretty fast. He didn't care about no. Here, have the here. Take the house. Here, take this. We have a media company. Okay, boom, boom, boom. I like how theirs worked out pretty quick, simple, fast, and smooth. You know what I mean? Well, the front wise and like we see it up front as smooth. Maybe it was a little bit rough, but they was fast. No matter how rough it was, she took the house. He got a new spot. They got the kids going. They're all great, good to go. And then let's go to Nick Cannon and Mariah Carey, where they didn't even. They actually their divorce was taking a little long, kinda. But they found out some stuff about both their lawyers, and they were just like, you know what? Every time in a divorce, both the lawyers, they be having dinner with each other. Not saying every situation where every lawyer is going to be cool with the other lawyer like that, but they basically said, hey, Nick Cannon on Big Boy, I think it was Big Boy where he said that some years ago, he said, hey, basically in a divorce, both lawyers, their goal is to figure out which partner is the richest. If they're both making money, who's making the most money? And let's put it kind of both of us in their favor so we get the most payout. Found out lawyers were having dinner with each other, high-fiving and dapping and shit. So Nick Cannon said, look, me and Mariah Carey, we both got rid of our lawyers and just handled our divorce ourselves nice, quick, and smooth. Just like that. No other complications, no extra expenses, nothing. We did it ourselves. The lawyers were acting cuckoo for coconuts. I think that's the way it should be done. But as we can see, you know, it's not all so bright. Like a lot of times the woman wants the lawyers to handle it. So they, you know, the lawyers get the most of the work on them mainly, just so they can get the most out of everything. As far as but at the same time, I can kind of actually let me cut myself off there because I'm talking about this is why I don't like to. Sometimes celebrities do have insight, but given their situations, even with like Chrissy Sarah, they're in the high six figures, millionaires. Mariah Carey and Nick Cannon, both millionaires. They can do this stuff. So sometimes people get divorced here and there. You got Cardi B and Offset, but this is like, none of y'all are going to be financially under the fucking water. Even if they change their lifestyle and lower things just a little bit, they're still going to be living way better than the average American. They'll be either solid middle class, pretty much almost unmovable with the kind of revenue that each party can bring in because they're two famous people or whatever, or social media popular people that are making 6 figures a month or high 5 figures a month, or they're going to end up in just upper middle class. Just upper middle class, right next to upper class. Like, come on now. You know what I mean? So
the only thing that we agreed upon in the entire case, which is good. It really is. Next, division of community property. Nicholas Michael Palom requests that the court divide the community estate in a manner that the court deems just in right as provided by law and set out in Exhibit A attached hereto. So Exhibit A is essentially an exhibit with spreadsheets, and it ends up being a 50-50 split down the middle. Stocks, shares, cash.
Fair.
everything.
Fair.
Next,
Yep.
separate property. Nicholas Michael Palm requests that the court confirm and assign his separate property to Nicholas Michael Palm as set out in Exhibit A, attached here too. So my stuff is my stuff.
Yeah.
Milena also had her stuff. Her stuff is her stuff.
That's
which
it.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Next, waste and reconstitution.
Makes too much sense.
Nicholas Michael Palm requests the court to find that Milena Midtoy Palm has committed waste on the community and to reconstitute what ought be the actual existing value of the estate as a part of the court's just and right division of the community estate as set out in Exhibit A attached here too. So just the waste claim, essentially she had one against me, so I had one against her. I'm not trying to get into the gritty details of that. Next, attorney's fees. Order Milena Midtoy Palm pay a portion of Nicholas Michael Palm's attorney fees, expenses, and costs, rendering a judgment against Milena Midtoy Palm in favor of Kirker Davis LLP, attorneys for Nicholas Michael Palm, and order Milena Midtoy Palm to pay such a judgment directly to Stephen W. Payne and Kirker Davis LLP, who may enforce the judgment in attorney's own name with post-judgment interest as allowed by law. Attorney's fees. And then my last thing that I asked for, request for Milena Midtoy Palm. Nicholas Michael Palm requests that all relief requested by Milena Midtoy Palm be denied. So essentially what I'm asking for in this is a clean 50-50 split down the middle, just like I wanted back in April and March of 2025. What we have here is the court's ruling. This is what everyone's been waiting for, so let's just go ahead and get right into it. Dear counsel, from January 12th, 2026 to January 13th, 2026, the court presided over this case and took it under advisement. The ruling of the court is as follows. Divorce is granted on the grounds of insupportability. It's good. That's what I wanted. That's what Milena wanted.
Okay.
It's a no-fault divorce. Next, division of community property. 50% to Mr. Palm and 50% to Miss Palm, with the exception of King's Gaming Lab, Starforge, ordered to be split 55% to Miss Palm and 45% to Mr. Palm. The court finds that the disproportionate share of those funds are warranted due, number one, the disparity of the earning power, number two, nature of the property involved, and three, waste. So let me explain, before everyone gets all excited, what that means. I have a very small ownership in Starforge. She gets 5% more than I do, and if you do the math, it ends up being about 15K. If you remember during Milena's disposition of issues, she had asked for a 60-40 split because of things like economic and financial abuse of the petitioner. She did not get that. The community estate was essentially just 50-50 split down the middle, with the exception of Starforge, which is about a $15,000 extra towards Milena. And it makes sense to me. I will probably earn more than her going forward, and that seems pretty fair to me. Up next, and this is very, very, very important because it has to do with my shares. Nick and NMP LOL are designated as constructive trustee for Miss Palm's interest. So what that means, I don't have to send her my shares. I don't have to send her cash for the shares. I will hold her shares in my name until they're sold, if and when they're sold. So that was a big, big, big deal for me. Doesn't put me in generational debt, and if they sell, they sell. Up next, attorney's fees, denied. Each party pays their own attorney's fees. Motion to seal the court records, denied. Injunctions, denied. Post-divorce maintenance, denied. That means me not being able to talk about the case was denied, and the $5,000 a month for 5 years that Milena wanted was also denied. She did not get that. Each party is to keep credit card in its debt in their own name. Each party to keep household furnishings in their possession. So all this stuff in this house is mine. All the stuff in hers is hers. Each party to keep their jewelry.
I like it.
And personal items. So for example, that necklace that I wore, I get to keep. Pokemon cards.
Now, if this was New Jersey, apparently in New Jersey, if there was like any, proof of adultery or anything like that. Now, I'm not sure the super details of whether anything changed 5 years after I've heard this a long time ago. And they talk about it. Even I was listening to Joe Budden podcast. They live there. They go through this. I think you have to give any gifts, like valuable gifts back, like the wedding ring, like any type of jewelry. Like apparently you have to give it back. When girls, I ain't giving back the ring, girl. I'm a seller or whatever. I got rid of my ring or something like that. Or I hate it, so he wouldn't know I'm keeping it. No, you got to get that shit back. Or else they going to come for you. The courts will come for your ass.
Card collection to be divided equally. Mr. and Mrs. Palm to each keep their own online skins. Magic the Gathering card collection to be divided equally. The Super 73 bike is awarded to Miss Palm. Each party to keep ownership of their own social media accounts. 2023 Cadillac Escalade is awarded to Miss Palm. 2021 Nissan GTR is awarded to me.
Okay.
So that was
bad.
the court's ruling.
Not
To
bad.
summarize, it was essentially the same exact offer that I had offered her back in
Pretty
March
much.
and April of 2025.
It's just the 45%. We just didn't know about that part. That's the only thing that's slightly different. That's pretty much anything. It seems simple to me. I like it. Now, some rulings will go like that in court, and you'll hear stories about wives getting pissed off. Everything's split. Okay, you got this. You got no. I deserve more. And it's like, all right, you want to go that route? We can go that route. And the husband usually makes it a living hell for the wife. Now, sometimes, a lot of times, most of the time you hear about the other way around, where the women get some more and the women use the guy, got over on him, and the court's go in her favor, and then she's getting like $500,000 a year or some crazy shit like that. Like we heard about the Nigerian millionaire guy that his family warned him about this black girl that he married here. I forgot the name, but you probably know about the marriage. You might have seen their pictures around social media and other outlets reporting on this. Charlamagne the God and them over at the Breakfast Club, to where I think she's supposed to get like some type of 6 figures a month or something crazy like that. But they were only married for like a year or 2 years. So spousal support only it depends on how long that you were married for. Like if you're married to somebody for like a year and a half, you're only gonna get that type of money for like a year. Doesn't it equal to like 500,000 a year or something like that, or 45,000 a month, 40,000 a month, something crazy like that? But she's only gonna be getting that for like a year. I think only a year and some months. Is it a year and a half or 2 years? But anyway, she's only gonna get that for a little bit. And people like her, if she don't start no business, I said, if she don't start no business, she's gonna blow that money. Oh, usually outcomes you hear, oh, they get all this money, get all these cars, all this fancy stuff, and all of a sudden they're selling the house. They ain't start no business like that yet. They just been spending all the money balling, going on vacations and girls trip. You ain't even build your social media personality stuff up yet. You could at least did that and they got money off of appearances and all that. I don't know, start a podcast or not. Or not. You might encourage some women and maybe even some men to do some dumb shit, but I don't know.
With the exception of the extra $15K, this court case lasted well over a year. It cost over $400,000 in lawyer fees, expert fees, and in my opinion, most of it was unnecessary. But I had to go. I had no choice.
$400,000 could have been saved. She just went straight down the middle. She wanted, let the lawyers handle. Ben Baller, the jeweler, his divorce was like, it was kind of easy, but it wasn't, because his wife was already, I'm talking about Ben Baller, the jeweler, the Korean dude. His wife was already kind of, I guess you could say, gaining some wealth before he even knew her. Like she already had, I think she had like a G-Wagon or something like that. She already had like a successful like bikini line. She was rich already. Rich, becoming wealthy. So even in their divorce, I think his divorce cost was it 1.5 million or 2.5 million? Oh my God, stressed him the fuck out, and probably stressed her the fuck out. I don't know, but you know, he paid the brunt of it. I think that's from what I'm getting from him.
If I was to continue to stream through everything, people would have been harassing me about it the entire time, like they did when I first started. And I do believe that me not streaming was the quickest way to come to a conclusion with this divorce. So there was a lot of rumors and things that kind of spawned from this case because documents were leaked and people made up their own theories and ran with them. I could sit here and diffuse all of them. It'd be pretty easy because none of them were true. But honestly, I got the ruling that I wanted, and I'm not going to do that. I might mention them on the podcast with Chance where we can do it in a less informal environment. But that's essentially kind of what happened. That's the story. That's where I've been. You know, it really does suck that things ended up this way with me and Milena. We spent well over 10 years together. It just ended up being that way. It's the road that we had to walk, and it's over. There was a whole bunch of different.
I didn't hear anything about any type of spousal support. That $500,000 a month, that $5,000 a month even got rolled out. That's the cherry on top. 10 years, damn.
Dramas and things that happen behind the scenes that people would find really interesting, but I'm not trying to throw any shade at anybody, or at this point, if I don't have to talk about that, I won't. Speaking
10 years together, but I don't remember how long they were actually married for.
For me emotionally, this whole thing has been quite stressful. There's been so many things said about me that just aren't true. It was somewhat exhausting. And once I got this ruling, I literally broke down and cried. Like I was like sobbing tears.
It's been a while since we've actually heard a ruling that comes out in this great of a favor of a guy.
You know, that it was finally over. This
publicly, at least. Publicly.
We finally got the ruling. But you know, lawyer stuff, it took until last month for it to actually be over. I wish Milena and her family the best. I have no ill will towards them. Hopefully things go well for them, and I'm just ready to get back to work. I want to give this another try, see if I can still do it. So that's the summary. Again, if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Thanks for watching, and fuck you. There's only one winner when it comes to divorce court.
Yeah, the lawyers.
It's the lawyers. Because they're walking away with $400,000 of me and Melena's money, and they could not give two fucks about us.